it's Alice, and welcome to a new year. We made it to 2022 somehow, and that means it's time to take a look at 2021 and see how things went, reading-wise. So first of all, this was not my year, guys. It was just not it. Looking back at it now, 2021 was kind of a rough year, to be honest. Not just when it comes to reading, but just like in a lot of different areas, and I feel like everything that was going on really affected me, and it really affected my reading mood. I was kind of slumpy like all year. Like I was in different waves of slumpiness throughout the year, and I was reading, but I wasn't enjoying it as much as I usually do or want to, and so it was just kind of a rough year, and it got to me a little bit. So looking back at it now, last year was just not it. I had a goal of reading 100 books last year, and this is a goal that I've had for the past 5 years, and I've been able to do for the past 5 years fairly easily, to be honest, and some years I've even surpassed it. But this year, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And allow me to be ridiculous for like a small second, because I read 85 books, which is a lot. Like 85 books is a lot of books, and I feel like it's really good, but there is a part of me that is a little bit sad that I couldn't reach 100. So yeah, I read 85 books out of my completely unnecessary goal of reading 100. In pages though, that comes out to around 27,000 pages, which is a lot. Luckily for me though, I do feel like a lot of the books that I read were really good, and a lot of them were great, and I didn't read as many of those books that I really didn't like or even hated. Like there were a couple, but not a lot of them. So I feel like even though I read less than usual, I also read a lot of good and great books. I will also say I could have probably reached my goal if I'd really buckled down in December and just read a bunch of short books, but I didn't feel like doing it, and so I didn't do it. I actually barely read anything in December because I just wasn't in the mood, and I was basically at work 24/7, so I felt like I didn't really have the energy for it. So I could have probably maybe done it, but I didn't feel like it, so I didn't do it. And that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I didn't really have any other solid goals besides reading 100 books, but I do keep track of certain things, and I have a reading spreadsheet because I'm that kind of person, apparently. And I use it throughout the year, and it keeps track of certain things, and I thought we could just go through that and see how it went. So the first thing I keep track of is how much fiction I read versus nonfiction. And last year I read 55 fiction books, which makes up 65%, and 30 nonfiction books, which makes up 35%. That is actually a little bit different than previous years, I feel. I read more nonfiction percentage-wise than I usually do, and I feel like 30 nonfiction books is pretty darn good. I read 10 books in Norwegian, which makes up 12%, and 75 in English, which makes up 88%. This I'm also pretty happy with. I feel like that's sort of on the same level as 2020, if I remember correctly. I did have an idea to do more rereading in 2021. Didn't really do that. I reread one book, which is better than none, I guess, but the remaining 84 were new ones, and it just wasn't my thing last year, apparently. Maybe this year will be my year of rereading. Who knows? 10 of the books that I read, so 12%, were translated, and the rest were not. And this I'm okay with. I'd always like to read more translated books, but maybe this year will be the year that I read even more. I don't know. I feel like 10 is pretty good. I read 5 classics in 2021, which makes up 6%, and 80 non-classics, which makes up 94%. I really want to get back into reading classics. I want to read more of them because a few years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was really into reading them, and I really enjoyed reading them, but I've just sort of fallen off that train, and I want to get back on it. But 2021 was not the year for that. Maybe this year will be though, but last year I just was not in the mood. 18 of the books that I read, so 21%, were in a series, and the rest were not. And then 17 of the books that I read were by BAME/BIPOC authors, which makes up 20%, and the rest were not. The series thing I track just because I think it's an interesting thing to know, but the BAME/BIPOC thing I track to sort of remind myself to diversify my reading, and I sort of look at it throughout the year and remind myself to pick up books by different kinds of authors and different kinds of voices, and sort of keeping track of it like that makes it easier for me to do that. I feel like 20% is pretty okay, but I could always do better. 53 of the books that I read were by female authors, which is 62%. 29 were male, which is 34%, and 3 were others, which means anything that doesn't fit into those two categories, and that makes up 4%. On to ratings, I gave 2 books 1 star, 10 books 2 stars, 30 books 3 stars, 32 books 4 stars, and 11 books 5 stars. And I think the average of that in total is around like 3.5 or something. Now, as you can see, most of the books that I read last year I gave 3 stars or more, which is great. For me, 3 stars is not a bad rating at all. It just means I read and enjoyed this book. And so most of the books I read last year were pretty good. Like, I enjoyed most of them. I have years where I've given loads of books 2 and 1 star, so I feel like last year was pretty good when it came to like books that I liked and enjoyed. I think because I've felt so slumpy throughout the year, I've sort of had this mindset for long periods of time last year that I'm just gonna pick up books that I want to read in the moment, and I'm not gonna focus on anything in particular, and I'm not gonna push myself or challenge myself to read certain types of books. And I feel like there's kind of a conversation to be had about forcing yourself or challenging yourself to pick up certain types of books or certain books. And I feel like generally it's seen as a bad thing, but for me, when I'm in a good reading mood, pushing myself or challenging myself to read certain types of things is actually kind of a good thing. Like, if I'm in a good reading mood, pushing myself to read weirder books or more challenging books is actually kind of nice, because I really enjoy reading those books. I just struggle to actually get around to picking them up. And so I feel like if I'm in a good reading mood this year, I'm gonna try to challenge myself a little bit and push myself a little bit. Sometimes that means I end up reading books that I really don't like, but often I end up reading a lot of books that I do like. And I feel like pushing yourself to read some things helps with the kinds of books that you do want to read, but you don't want to start, if that makes sense. Last year, though, I just couldn't really do that, and it's not what I needed, so I didn't really do it. Now, I am really glad that it's a new year now. There is something really wonderful about the beginning of a new year. I feel like it's really invigorating and really motivating, especially when it comes to my reading. So it's maybe time to make some new reading goals and reading challenges for the new year, except I'm not gonna make any. I'm actually, for the first time in like 5 years, not gonna set myself a goal of reading 100 books, because I feel like it didn't serve me very well last year. It was just stressful, and so I'm not gonna do it this year. I'm just gonna try to read as much as I want, and I'm basically like, I have some other vague goals and some things I want to focus on, but I'm not going to put numbers on anything. The only things I kind of want to focus on in 2022 is, I've got 2 things. I've got translated books. I want to read more translated book, or at least try to focus on it a little bit. And then I want to read more classics. The translated book thing I'm just going to like try to do, but the classics thing I have a little project in mind for, so keep your eyes peeled for that because it's coming. Speaking of upcoming things though, I've now got a whole new year of videos to make, and usually I do one of these videos every year, and usually I will do like a survey thing that you guys can fill out, but I kind of didn't feel like doing it this year, but I would love your feedback. And so if you have any video suggestions or any suggestions at all, really, please leave a comment, because I would love to know. I would love to get specific video ideas or vague video ideas or themes, or like if you've seen any books on my channel that you want me to talk about or read, I would love to know. And if you don't want to do it in a comment, you can DM me on Instagram if that's better for you. And any kinds of suggestions are very well appreciated. I do love like a specific video suggestions, but anything really, like do you prefer sit down videos over vlogs, or do you prefer a mix? Like anything you can think of, I would love to know. If you don't know what to say, it's also helpful to know what your favorite videos of mine that you watched last year were. You can tell me about that, or like anything, like any inspiration that you have or suggestions, give them to me because I need them. I think that's kind of it for this video though. I would love to know how your reading was in 2021, and if you've made any goals or plans or challenges for yourself in the new year, please tell me about it. And as usual, links to my Patreon and other social media will be in the description if you're interested, and I will see you soon. Bye!